What is up everyone, my name is FMSorcerer and today I'm going to be showing you guys some creative utility and shadow spell ideas for Imperia.
Look at the way that I floss. Shorty say that I'm a boss, and they know I got a sauce. You don't want me, that's your love.
Alright yo, so cool fact, this is actually a sequel to a video I made way back in January, so if any subscribers remember that, then that is definitely awesome. Real quick, before we get the video started, let's have a sub and a like goal. We're gonna have a sub goal because I'm almost at 3,000 subscribers, only about 300 more, so yeah, let's try to get at least 15 new subscribers from this video. If we can gain 15 new subs who have never seen any of my videos before and they're just watching, or maybe you've been watching and you weren't sure if you should subscribe, then that would definitely be lit, guys. And let's try to get at least 50 likes on this video. So 15 new subscribers, 50 likes. I know you guys can do it, but let's get started. So just a quick note, I wanted to mention that I do make all of the ideas that are in these videos. So if anyone in the comment section is going to be wondering about maybe me making a tutorial in the future, I could possibly do that. I know people have asked me in the past. So if there are enough comments asking me to possibly show you guys how I do make these, then I can do that. But just wanted to let you all know. So the first spell in the video is a fire utility spell named Fierce, which costs 3 pips and allows fire wizards to gain 40% fire damage bubbles and a 35% fire blade when they are hit with a shadow enhanced spell within the next 2 rounds. So I basically decided that this spell would be needed for fire because it could help counter shadow enhanced spells when they are spammed in the battle, and it would be a good strategy that allows fire to basically pose a threat to, you know, not just for PvP but for PvE bosses, enemies, opponents in PvP as well. It would allow them to have a threat so that shadow enhanced spells will no longer be so spammable, and if somebody wants to use a shadow enhanced spell against a fire wizard, then they would obviously have to risk the possibility of them using the spell on the same round that they hit them with that spell and giving the fire wizard a bubble and a blade, or they can choose to just wait and not use the spell at all while the 2 rounds pass, which would of course change the entire flow of the battle. Now the spell animation would be something like after the shadow spell would hit the wizard, a dark wind that looks like shadow magic would blow across really quickly to the side of the screen, and a flame would ignite really quickly near the wizard and the bubble would be cast onto the field, and then they would gain a blade like you normally gain a blade. Fire's shadow spell is called Ember Queen and it costs 7 pips and 1 shadow pip, and it would deal 100 fire damage and 750 sun damage and then give the target a weakness, and the caster would receive a 25% fire pierce blade. Now the reason why this spell would be needed for fire is because it actually introduces a new type of mechanic that has never been on any fire spell, something similar to Minotaur where it hits once and then it hits again, and it would also have sun damage now being included in the mix for fire spells, so that would definitely open up a lot of possibility for the future. The animation for Ember Queen would start with Ember sparking on the dual circle, and then the queen would rise up from the flames and she would start bending as she hits the opponent, and her hair would be flowing effortlessly while she is doing that. Storm's utility spell is called Charged Shield, and it gives the wizard a minus 55% tower shield, and if the shield is hit off the same round that it was cast, that activates a wild bolt on the target. Now this spell is needed for Storm because they struggle when it comes to being defensive, and they pretty much risk falling victim to shield spam if just 1 round is spent by a Storm wizard to shield themselves. Charged Shield will give Storm more confidence to shield whilst threatening the opponent not to hit them for a while unless they want that wild bolt to be triggered. The spell animation would cast a glowing tower shield with a golden outline around the edge and a bolt in the middle, and then when the shield is hit, it would burst into tiny little lightning bolts, and a dark purple wild bolt would attack the opponent. Storm Shadow spell is a DOT spell called Empyrean Huntress, which does 100 storm damage on the first hit and then 750 storm damage over 3 rounds. It stuns the opponent and then it would heal the caster for 450 health. This spell is especially needed because Storm really could use a DOT spell. They have never had a trainable DOT spell, and their only available damage over time spells are ones that you can buy in the bazaar, and those are rare especially. Empyrean Huntress would not be too broken, so that would definitely eliminate complaints in terms of the amount of damage that it does, and it would also be helpful for Storm Wizards in terms of having an alternative to Healing Current so that they can have another way to heal themselves. The animation would have Empyrean clouds open up at the beginning, and then the Huntress would run out with a charged bow. She would then shoot the opponent with a bolt and spread her hands towards the caster to heal them. Now check out this next spell. It is actually pretty cool. It is Isis utility spell called Frozen Blade. Now a Frozen Blade does is it gives the wizard a plus 40% ice blade to the next spell, and the damage from that blade on the spell is not dealt until the round later. This spell could be useful for ice because there's a lot of complaints all the time about how overpowered ice is, being the #1 best school in the game, and the fact that they're able to tank and be offensive at the same time. So a blade that would, you know, be more of a encouragement for ice to change their strategy and be more of an offensive school would definitely help maybe balance that out a bit. The animation starts just like a normal ice blade, and then the blade is frosted over. Now when the blade is used, it will show that the blade is being taken away just like a normal blade, and the damage that is dealt the next round will burst the opponent with an icy snow. Ice's shadow spell is called Frost Dragon. Now Frost Dragon is a really unique and complex spell, and the effects of the spell involve stealing the target's shield first, and then dealing 250 ice damage 3 separate times during the same round. Now during this the Frost Dragon spell may stun the opponent, or it will place a negative with each hit that it does. So that negative could either be a mantle, a weakness, or a dispel, and that would obviously mean that it could do a mantle twice and a dispel once, or a dispel twice and a weakness once. It could really just vary. The dispel would be the school of the opponent that you are attacking. So if you're hitting a life wizard, then it's going to give them a life dispel. If you're hitting a fire wizard, it's a fire dispel. Now to basically explain all of this in an easier term, what Frost Dragon does is it hits 3 times, almost like a Minotaur or an Orthrus, and in one spell on one round. It's not a damage over time spell. So basically the Frost Dragon would blow the ice onto the opponent the first time, and then it would place a negative if the opponent is not stunned. If the opponent is stunned, it places no negatives, and that's the end of the spell. So you're basically gambling and choosing to either cast a spell and get only a stun. With an epic enchant, it would do 350 damage for each hit, or you would be getting a negative with each hit. So that would mean it would hit once, you would get a weakness on the opponent, it would hit again, maybe a mantle, maybe another weakness. It really just all varies. Frost Dragon begins with the dual circle freezing over, and then a snow avalanche appearing. Now the Frost Dragon would then fly down onto that snow avalanche, and he would have glowing blue eyes, and they would glow even more after the shield is stolen, and then he would breathe ice 3 separate times onto the opponent as he hits them. Balance's utility spell would be Balance Prism, and would convert balance damage to any spirit school damage or elemental school damage. Now this is a pretty simple spell, and it is really obvious why Balance needs it, considering the fact that they are the only school in the entire game without a convert. Now Balance Prism would help balance, especially in questing and PvE. Solo questing is really hard for balance wizards because they have to face balance bosses, and they have no way to convert the damage unless they use a Gaze of Fate or a Hydra or something like that, but then they'd have to rely on using elemental traps and elemental blades, and it's just a long process when it could easily be solved with a spell like Balance Prism. And if the argument is that balance is already too good and it's not in PvE, then it would be 3 pips because it is a 3-pip utility spell. The spell animation would be just like all of the other converts, and it would look no different. Balance's shadow spell is called Anema Blast, and Anema Blast does 950 myth, 840 depth, or 765 life damage, and then destroys 2 pips. Now Anema Blast would be useful for balance because in the past, players with balance wizards have requested that Spirit Blast be made a trainable spell, and this would definitely be a really cool spell to have as a max level wizard in the Empyrean update or an update soon to come, and it would obviously have more damage done, and then the effect of destroying 2 pips since it is a max level spell. The spell animation will look closely similar to Spirit Blast, except it would have better updated visuals and graphics, and it would have maybe some small particles on the spirit damage that is dealt, such as maybe life having little leaves that you can see, or myth having little small yellow triangles. And of course, it would show the 2 pips disintegrating after the damage is dealt. Death's utility spell is called Necro Blade, and it gives the wizard a plus 10% death pierce blade and plus 30% health back from their next drain spell. Now this spell would definitely be needed for death, considering the fact that they have a lack in the amount of overpowered spells in their library, and they are really slacking when it comes to PvP and in PvE too, considering the fact that they don't have nearly as many lore spells as all the other schools. The animation would have a black smoke rush across the wizard's head, and then the Necro Blade would start to form quickly from the left to the right. The Bat's Wrath is Death's shadow spell, and what it does is 950 to 1050 death damage to all enemies, and then it converts that health back to the caster only after you are defeated. And this effect cannot stack, it only applies once at a time, so you can't just keep on using this and having that effect apply. However, you can still use the spell and do the damage. It's just that that effect won't apply again until after you've already died, gotten health back, and come back to life. Now this spell is needed because once again, Death could really use a boost in the amount of overpowered, unique spells that they have in their library, and the Bat's Wrath is the perfect spell for that, considering that this is something that Death has never had before, and it would definitely make a lot of sense. It's almost like Guardian Spirit except for Death, and it would not be too broken because it would be on a max level spell that you would have to use 7 pips for in order to cast. The spell animation for the Bat's Wrath would start with a dark bolt of blue and green lightning striking the dual circle before gray clouds open up and the bat begins flying around in a circle before attacking the opponent and then healing the wizard with a blue magic. Last utility spell is Earth Defense, and Earth Defense absorbs the next 250 damage and then heals the wizard for 250 health when the absorb is broken. Earth Defense would be useful to life because it would help reintroduce their tanking and healing type of playstyle. The spell animation has a formation of rocks erupt from the ground and surround the wizard, and the absorb placed near their feet. When the absorb is broken, the wizard is risen up as they are being healed, and rocks levitate near them. Angel Support is Life Shadow spell, and it does 750 to 850 life damage to the opponent, and the target chosen receives 600 health over 3 rounds and a minus 25% fortified. This would be really helpful to life because it would be a defensive spell that also deals powerful damage when it's enchanted, and the spell is needed for life because it would make life even more useful on a team and in solo at max. This is one of my favorite spell ideas for this video, and the spell animation would start with a white space emerging and an angel girl appearing while a blue energy outlines her body. When she is fully present, she places her hands gently on the ground into a transmutation circle and causes green and blue lightning to spark from the circle. A green burst hits the opponent, and a blue burst goes to the target, leaving a healing DOT afterwards. Moonblade is Myth's utility spell, and it gives the caster plus 45 stun resistance pierce to their next damage spell. Now this is pretty simple to explain, but in case anyone doesn't really understand, it basically means if you use this blade and then you cast, say, Medusa or just a general stun, and the wizard that you cast it on, or the enemy or opponent, whoever, if they have a stun block or a conviction, this blade will give you 45 stun resist or stun block pierce, so you have a chance of still stunning them. It makes a lot of sense for a Myth to have this because stunning has been a huge aspect of their school spells in the past, and it would just be a really unique spell that has never been added to the game before. The spell animation for Moonblade would be just like any other blade. Lunar Minotaur is Myth's shadow spell, and it does 550 Myth damage and 550 moon damage to all enemies and prevents the target chosen from shielding for 2 rounds. So the way this spell works is before you choose the spell, it will let you select a specific target and it will deal the damage to all enemies, but the person who's not able to shield 2 rounds is the one that you chose before you casted the spell. This spell will be extremely useful for Myth and will make them much better on teams, but also as a school in general, considering the fact that this is an upgraded Minotaur and it would deal moon damage as well as Myth damage. Its effect of preventing the target from shielding for 2 rounds is really great. If you're on a team, you could choose whoever you want to prevent from shielding, and if you're doing solo PvP, you can use this to pull off some really good combos if you have a follow-up hit. The spell animation would be similar to the way that Minotaur starts, and it would have Empyrean clouds swept away as he fiercely walks from them, and then he stops and swings his axe with a moon on it the first time, dealing Myth damage to all enemies, and then the second time that he swings his axe, it will show blue energy coming from it as the moon damage. But those were all 14 of the spell ideas in this video. I hope you all did enjoy it. Hopefully KingsIsle will one day pay attention to one of these vids. I'm going to keep doing more spell ideas. This is an entire series that I have that is on my channel. There's a playlist if you want to go check out the other ones I've done. But hopefully one day someone at KingsIsle will take inspiration from some of these spells and maybe make spells that are either like these or pretty much the same. That would be really awesome. I really do think that there is a place for some of the spell ideas that I have in this vid because a lot of them are really unique, and that's what people really want, more unique spells in the game instead of just overpowered ones. So it would definitely be cool if KI could take a look at one of these vids one day. This was the first video in a new series about the 3rd arc that I'm going to be doing on my channel. So if you want to see the next vid in the series, which is going to be called Wizard101 The 8th School, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next vid. Peace.
So let's live happily ever after. They think that the girls the baddest. We both know your ass is battered. If I lost money, I'd be sad. If I lost you, girl, I'd be sadder. I think we just need our space. We should buy a crib on Saturn. I heard real estate is cheap. Healthcare is actually free. You only swim, you never sink.